Hi, my name is Mike Lucero. I know some of you I don't know. One of the things I wanted to talk about today was leveraging the reporting functionality within 2012 to provide reports for management, bosses, people who want to be able to utilize the data that CM collects. Because as we all know, that's really in the basic form, it's a data collector. It collects a lot of data, gets a lot of information, and if you have ever dealt with managers like I have, managers want to know what that is. So traditionally, and how many of y'all right now are actually leveraging the reporting functionality within CM? So a few of you. How many of you are still using SQL to pull queries out, export them into Excel, and then just shove the Excel sheet over to your boss? We got one still. So in the last several places that I've been that are using CM, traditionally it has been, well, you know, I don't want to use any reporting, I don't want to use a web service, just give me an Excel sheet, I'll manipulate it the way I want it and present it to my bosses the way they want to see it. So over the years I've learned to convince some people that there are easier ways to do that from within CM, whether it was an older version or the newer version now, and I prefer the newer version of reporting. And so let's talk about some of the criteria that managers typically like when they're talking about reports. First off, reports have to be easy to read. Whatever data that you're providing them has to be easy for them to read. They have to be able to look at it, pull what they need out of it, and be able to communicate that to their supervisors as well. Secondly, the data is meaningful. Whatever data is in whatever column has to mean something to that manager or their supervisors. They have to be able to understand what you're presenting to them. Thirdly, the results are summarized. You provide a 70,000 row spreadsheet to a manager, more than likely they're going to condense it down into 5 or 6 rows that are summarized. So why don't you do that for them? But they want to be able to drill down and see the details of it whenever they need to. And then lastly, pictures. Managers like pictures. Graphs, charts, trend lines, stick figures pointing to a chart or a trend line. They love pictures. So with that set of criteria in mind, what I wanted to do was start out with a traditional report, and hopefully if y'all remembered some of what Greg presented last time or you're leveraging it now, we can go quickly through the first section of it and get the base setup, and then we'll go dive into some dashboards. I'm not doing anything complicated. I really just wanted to show some of the additions that CM has and how you can use them to make that last criteria come to life, which is the pictures. So pop over here into my lab environment, and what I'm going to do here is I've already got some queries pre-made to make it a little easier. This query is a actually that's the last one. Let's go up to the first one here. First off, organizing your reports. Inside C, go into the reporting section, you've got a series of folders that are canned. Now a lot of times what you want to do is, in order to create an environment in which your boss or somebody doesn't have to go searching for a report, you want to create their own folder. That way they can dive into it, or if you want to do granular permissions and say just go to this website, look for this folder, and you're done, you can do that. So it's very easy to do that on the back end. If you go to your reporting server, open it up, and then just create a new folder, and we'll just call this one CTSMUG. And then refresh. Refresh. Let's do it the easier way. Well, that's nice. I'm going to have to do that. It was working yesterday. And your folder's there. So let's create this first base report. I'm just going to call it
operating system details. Pop it in the new folder we just created. So the report that we've got that I'm going to make is a system name, operating system name, whether it has a client, whether that client is active. Very simple report. Going to create a table or matrix here, creating a new data set to your site there. I'm just going to use current Windows user. I usually go in as edit as text, drop my queries in, and most of these I build in SQL ahead of time, and that way I test them out inside SQL, make sure they're producing what I want to, and then I'll bring them into here. You can run that and test it, giving you what you want. Hit next. Grab your items and drag them over to your value section here. And I usually just default display, and of course, as you know, your operating system names are going to be a little larger, so let's expand that column and expand that one, and we can pop these two down, and let's make the column headings a little more meaningful. Enter them into a test. Sorry about the slowness, lab. Oh, now we have the results of this particular report. Now, one of the criteria that we haven't met here is that all the data is meaningful. I mean, we may know what a system name is, we may know what an operating system name, but I seriously doubt your manager is going to know what a 1 or a nothing is going to mean in those client and active columns. So what we want to do is take this base report and build on that, and we're going to use case statements to fill those out. How many of y'all are using case statements right now? So a case statement allows you to take the data that has resulted from your query and replace that data with something you want to put in there based on the value of your original result. So what we're going to do here is we are going to take the values of 1, 0 and replace those with yes and no, which is what it is. It's true or false. So we're going to go back into your data set here, which is right here, and we're going to add a statement to replace these two pieces right here. So what we're doing is we're replacing the values of client 0 and active 0 with the case statements to replace that with yes. And let's actually do it. And so that you can see that, we're saying here when the client is equal to 1, then yes, else no, and as client, we're making sure we retain that label on there. Here we're saying the same thing except with the active status here, then yes or no, and retain that label on there. So we're going to go through, and the thing you have to remember now is that with a particular report, what we took were values that were numeric, and we've now changed those to strings. And so you need to make sure that in those columns that represented those values, you change those values over to your new items. And that's right here. So if you'll notice, that's a sum value or a sum equation here, and that's going to error out on you if you ran it right now. There's a little drop down box. Can you guys see that little box that just popped up in that cell? If you hit that, you can replace it with your new value there. And then we'll do a test run, and it comes up. So now you have a base meaningful report that you can submit to a manager that says, okay, here are the systems that we have, here's the operating systems that are on it, and these are the ones that have clients and these are the ones that don't. And of those ones that have clients, these are the ones that are active. So we'll save that report. Now let's talk about something else. Let's say you have a very large environment with a lot of different operating systems, and let's just say your areas of support are siloed to the point where you've got some managers that don't want to see server operating systems. You've got others that don't want to see your workstations operating systems. So you want to enable them to go ahead and select those out. So we're going to add the ability to put a parameter in here, which Greg demonstrated. I think you demonstrated that last time. So I'm going to go through that pretty quickly unless y'all want me to slow down on it. And what I'm really trying to do is set up this base report so we can jump into the other stuff. So we're going to go back into the design here, and what we're going to do is we're going to data set that is going to enable us to select those operating systems. And like before, right here I've just built a real simple query to pull those operating systems out. And let's create that new data set. Data source here. I usually go into Query Designer just because I like it. It's habitual. Drop that in there, test it. You got your list. I've ordered it by operating system. Click OK. Click OK to go through. Now you want to create your parameter. That's up here in this parameters box. So now you can add the variable that you're going to use for that selection drop down. And we're going to name that OS name. And the prompt we're going to have is operating system name. And the rest of these we really don't need to worry about. Like I said, it's a very simple prompt. And the final piece of that is that we need to change the original data set so it's looking to that parameter for its conditions. And so that we're going to do that with a where clause, and we're going to drop that variable into it. Now whenever you create a parameter, as you can see up here, it's got a little @ symbol there. That's what you're going to be using in your where clause. It's going to be @OS name as your variable. We'll drop this where we're checking the operating system name against that variable that's selected there. And we're going to drop that right in here. I think I missed something. Yeah, I did. Something incorrect here.
Get your where in the wrong spot.
Run a test on it. Great. There it is. Query. Query. Sorry about that. I'm a little nervous. First time I've presented in a while. So in your parameters, you want to make sure that you're actually pointing the value list that you're going to get presented back to the query that you created a dataset to. And so you want to point it back to datasets to. So what that's going to do is on that drop down box, it's going to go to that query and it's going to list it out just as you queried it out there. And you want to get your OS names in. Dataset 2, operating system name, and go. Alright. So you can select view your report, and obviously I've got a default in there which I'm going to go back in and change. run it one more time. Again, I apologize. So drop-down list comes in, select the operating system you want, click View Report, and you'll get the operating system you want. Now we've got our base report that we're going to be using for all the rest of it. So what this is this is the final drill down. So your manager is going to see your summarized report, and they're going to say, hey, I want to drill down into the data that you've given me to find out what systems have the operating systems that you've listed, and we're going to go from there. So now that we've got this base report, let's go in and do a summary. Most of the time what I've found is that my bosses have always wanted to count. How many XP systems do I have? How many Windows 7 systems do I have? How many server systems do I have of this particular type? And that we will do right now with the count statement. And we're also going to do a tabled report on this one as well. Again, create a new data set, select your source. Pop the query in, and all we're doing here is we're saying for each system name, give me the count that has under that name, and then label that particular variable here as quantity. Test it out. Yes, we've got a count. Again, take your fields, drop them down into here, and spread the name out. Check it. Now you can do some other things if you want. If you wanted to, you could add a title here by dropping a text box into here and just giving it a line it up. And the thing about this is that it will show you when you're lined up. Personally, I'd rather have a different color here. And go ahead and run it. Runs nice. Now you've got a title, or we can go ahead and change these column names. So now you've got a base report for your summary report. Now the nice thing at this point is that you can start building on this directly in this report. Have to create a new one. So let's just say we wanted to do that. We're going to drag this down. Oops. And let's say we want to put a chart in there so we get a nice picture. So we can go over here and do an insert on a chart. And we're going to use the same data set because all the numbers and data that we're getting from it are going to come from place. I'm going to use a columnar chart. And if you'll notice here, it says the categories fields on the x-axis. So what I want to do is I want our operating systems on the x-axis, and I want our quantity. The y-axis is going to be on your values field. And I'm just going to let you know from experience that because of the way the charts display, you really need to increase their size. So I'm just now, y'all can go experiment with what happens if you don't. It's entertaining. And let's change this to bold that. Never mind. My backpack right there. I was wondering why I can't see. It's because I don't have my glasses on. Thank you very much. And we'll change this one. Now here, if you wanted to here, you could change the way that these actually show up. I'm going to leave them as they are, but if you go to the label section, I have enable auto fit done. Depending on how you want the report to be presented, you can turn that off and actually rotate the text to be angled at full. You can have it up and down. I mean, you can make it and present it any way you want to. I'm just going to leave this here for now, and we'll do a test run. So now you've got a picture for your boss, you're below, and they're pretty happy. But now they've come to say, hey, I want to know what systems are in here. Well, luckily you built that report before that you had drill downs into, and so we'll create an action inside your summary report to go point to that other report. Let's save this first. Go back to your design view and go right in this guy. Get this out of the way really quick, sorry. And go to your text box property, go to your action, and you want it to go to another report. So any of your result boxes that you want to go externally, you can do so right here with this action. So what we'll do is we'll say go to another report. We'll browse out to that report, which is the details report. We're going to add a parameter to pass through, which is the OS name is what it's going to, and this is the variable that we're passing through. So we're passing through the operating system name from your summary report into the OS name variable in your details report. And we'll run that and show you what that's going to do. So now what you've got is you can go into here, click one of these, and it's going to show you your details report that you created before, which is why we set that one up to do that drop-down selection before. So now we've got a nice report that is showing us a summary of operating systems in a picture, and then the summary of what that picture represents, and then it drills down into a detail. So let's take this one step further, and let's go into a gauge. So one of the things that is to be able to take a look at a picture and get an idea as to whether you're in good shape, whether you're in some kind of shape that needs to be kind of be cautious about, or whether you really are in an alert state and you need to go act upon something. In the report builder there are gauges that you can use, and we're just going to go ahead and insert a gauge here. And I like to use color gauge because that gives you a red, yellow, green. And what we're going to do here is we are going to go ahead and create a new data set. And what I've done here, and I'll show you, I'm going to go ahead and create the data set, but I'll tell you what I've done after I get it in there. You're going to use a data set embed like we did before. Select your source. And what I've done is I've declared variables that I want to look at. I want to look at my total number of machines in the environment, the total number of clients that are installed, and the total number of active clients. And so what I've done is I've variables up here, and then I've used count statements to select those particular deals. So anyhow, so the total, of course, is the client, of course, tell them where the client's equal to 1, the actives, where the actives are equal to 1, and of course we're going to run a test down here to show you that the values are coming out. The important thing here is that in your select statement down here, you want to make sure you give them a label here. If you do not give them a label in this section of your report, you will not be able to select those from your data set in order to put them in your gauge, and you'll get an error. I'd show you that error, but you should go to experiment and find that error on your own because it's entertaining. So now what we're going to do is we're going to set this gauge up to use that data set, and then we're going to set some parameters around where the red, yellow, and green gauge is going to be set. So here what we want to do is we want to first off set your gauge panel properties to point to your data set. That basically just tells, hey, use this data set for everything we're doing inside. If you don't do that, you will get an error. Now let's set up the scale. What we want to do here is we want to set the scale of the first one. Since we're going to be checking of the number of clients installed in the environment, we're going to set the scale to the total number of resources you have. And you can do that with this formula here by just going into the data set you created and grabbing the total. So that's set. Now let's go in and set the pointer value. So the pointer properties are the number of clients. Do the same thing in here, data set 2, number of clients. Now we want to set our ranges. Your linear range 1 is the red range, 2 is yellow, the 3 is the green. So let's just, for the sake of argument, say that you wanted your first one to go from 0 to 90% of your environment. So what you can do is you can calculate the total number of your resources in your environment against that 90% value to get that first range. So we'll go on here, we'll multiply that times 0.9. And I'm just going to copy that so I can keep using it. Go into your range 2. In your range 2, we're going to go from 90 to 95. So we're going to set this first range to your 90 value and your second range here to your 95. You want to go in and set your third range to your 95 value to the So now if I haven't fat fingered anything, what we should get arrow pointing up in a new gauge setting. And you'll notice on the details report I had, out of the 8 machines I have 6 clients that are installed. So if you had a larger environment, this of course would get a lot narrower. You'd have far more in the green at that percent. But with mine, it's showing me, hey, you've got 2 machines that you need to install clients on to get up to where your criteria are. So now what we want to do is, one of the things that we've run into problems before is that of our clients that are out there, we want to know which ones are still talking back and actually active. And so what we can do is, let me save that, this same report here and literally just copy it and then just change the values. And so we will do that. We don't have to change the data set because it's already in there. But what we will do is we'll first off change the scale properties. And we want the scale in this case to be the total number of clients. The pointer in this case is going to be the number of active clients. And then what we'll do here on the ranges is we're just going to change a variable here and leave the data intact. So we'll change this value here to client, and then we'll just copy that, transfer it to our other ones.
Mike, real quick, I'd
Yes.
like to point out that if you keep the default data set names, data set 1, data set 2, and the reports that you're building, the ghost of reports past will come and haunt you for the rest of your life. Always
will.
change the data set name description.
Yeah, thank you for
Nobody
that.
likes coming in and trying to find out where your reports are later.
And so now if I haven't fat fingered anything on that one, we should get a result here at the bottom that we have got 6 clients in the environment. All of them are active, so we're in the green. And again, just like we did up here, you can always go in and label these by inserting a text box and labeling something intuitive. Installed clients. Set that up and center it, and then you can go drag it down if you want to, or line it up, pull it down, and then it'll show up at the top of your chart. So that's what I have. If anybody has any questions, let me know. I certainly entertain them right now. I did add one other thing if I have some time. Are we okay? There was a gauge that I liked that I wanted to, let me save that and close out. This indicator that you can actually, and you can insert any of your gauges and status indicators, you can actually insert them into your other reports as well. And so what I wanted to do was make a quick show on my details report of clients that needed to be flagged with a red dot or a green dot or a yellow dot. And the criteria I wanted to use on that was that, you know, if it's in good condition, your client's going to be installed and it's going to be active. If it's in caution condition, it's going to be your client's installed and it's not active. For me, an alert would be if I don't have a client at all. What I wanted to do with that was create a calculation. And granted, it was a very simple calculation, so it's just adding the values of client and active together and then utilizing those as the indicators, whether it's green, yellow, or red. So a 2 would be green, a 1 would be yellow, and a 0 would be red. And so what you can do here is you can insert a column here to the right, and we'll just call that column status. I have a Dell mouse pad that's going wacky on me, sorry. And then take it's an indicator, excuse me. Let's put those in there. And I'm going to have to change a query here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this guy, I'm going to create another. As you can see right here in this section, for the clients that don't, the resources that don't have a client and don't have an active status, that value is actually coming back as null, which is not a numeric value. So what we've got to do is we've got to take that null value and convert it into a numeric value so that we can do that calculation. And for me, that's just an equal to a no, or I mean to a 0. And so that's what I've done, is I've changed null values to 0 here. And I'm gonna change the name for Donnie here. Status data set. So now that I have our values that are showing up as numeric, if I would have pulled that in and just showed you the values, you all know it's going to come up and it's going to say null. So now that we have that,
No space.
oh, that's silly. Again, go here to your, you want to set your gauge panel to point to that data set. It's the fancy new named data set that we have. The value that we get here is the status value out of that data set, which is the, and we want, I actually don't want, and here we're going to start red at 0 and 0, yellow at 1 and 1, and green at 2 and everything, if I've done everything correct on this one, it should show green on, and I didn't do something correct. Oh, maybe I did. Didn't. It's got to be here. Well, quite frankly, I'm drawing a blank right now, but I already did this, so what I'll do is I'll go back to that report and show you what it does. So you can use those indicators to do things like that, which handy for a quick look to see where you need to act on. So that's what I have, and you know, hopefully you got some value out of it, and you can start using some gauges and maybe put some other pictures in there. Lots of charts out there. Pie charts are very handy, especially if you're doing any migrations, operating system migrations, and people want to see a percentage or a pie chart. The pie charts are very intuitive as the way you can label them, put your values in from a percentage perspective, and be able to have a legend on the side. So go in, play around with them, and don't get frustrated. It can be frustrating because getting those data sets and the values to match up to where they need to go, and then actually having them correct, can get tedious at times, as you've seen today. So did anybody have any questions or anything?
Is this session being recorded too?
Yes.
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 Yeah, save that notepad doc.
I will. I will.
Upload it or something. Yeah, we'll upload it along with the video.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.
Mike.